Bonjour. Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Bonjour. Bonjour et bienvenue à l'Université Concordia. Hello and welcome to Concordia University. I'm Tracy Hecht, Professor of Management and Graduate Program Director of the PhD in Business Administration at Concordia. I would like to begin by acknowledging that Concordia University is located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Kanien'kehá:ka Nation is recognized as the custodian of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Roskilde, Montréal, est historiquement connu comme un lieu de rassemblement pour de nombreuses Premières Nations et aujourd'hui une population autochtone diversifiée ainsi que d'autres peuples y résidents. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. Please join me now in welcoming WFRN President Jennifer Hook, Florence Everline Professor of Sociology at the University of Southern California.
Thank you, Tracy. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. It's so wonderful to see 500 members joining us from 40 different countries, and that global reach, the range of perspectives you bring, is what makes WFRN a truly wonderful community. And I'm trying to show you a map, but I don't know how to advance it. There we go. Welcome to our global membership. So I want to extend our sincere thanks to our sponsors and our member donors. Your generosity has supported a vibrant set of pre-conference events yesterday for our early career scholars and our broader community. It's enabled us to create so many spaces for connection by hosting our daily coffees, lunches, receptions, plenty of places for you to socialize and make connections. And it's allowed us to invest directly in our community members. This year, we were able to provide $6,000 in Global South Travel Awards, as well as $26,000 to support our Early Career Scholar Program. And all of this is possible because of your support. So thank you very much. And a special thanks to all of our members and all of the staff who have contributed to making this a very special event. We're truly glad you're here. I hope the next few days spark new ideas, new collaborations, and conversations that continue well beyond your time in Montreal. Now we're going to start with our first plenary, providing care across the life course. Our distinguished panelists will discuss policies and practices that support well-being and equitable caregiving across the life course. I'll be asking them to engage with the question, what best supports care? Each panelist brings a unique vantage point, and I'm very excited to hear their thoughts on this topic. Joining us today are Ernst Kossek, Basil S. Turner Distinguished Professor Emerita of Management at Purdue University, and the first elected president of WFRN. She's a thought leader on the future of work, specializing in work-family policies, women in STEM, flexible, remote, and hybrid work, and strategic employment issues. Also joining us today is Peng, the Canada Research Chair in Global Social Policy and the Director of the Center for Global Social Policy at the University of Toronto. Her research focuses on global social policy and political economy, specializing in the care economy, family, gender, migration, and climate change policies. And last, but certainly not least, Tine Rostgaard is professor in the Department of Social Sciences and Business at Roskilde University. She specializes in comparative welfare state analysis across the life course with deep expertise in care policies and long-term care for older adults. Welcome, and please thank our panelists for joining us today. And this is the part where I get to sit down. So I'm going to start out by asking our panelists what I think is a pretty hard question. And it's about what we might currently be getting wrong. So I asked our panelists to consider, from the vantage point of your research, what's the biggest failure in how we, be that employers, societies, ourselves as researchers, currently think about and address care needs across the life course. And I'm going to start to my right and ask Tina to begin.
Thank you very much. And wow, to see this many people here. Thank you for coming. Maybe I thought I maybe should do a bit of a declaration, because even though I feel part of this global membership, I am from a, a part of the world which is pretty affluent and has a kind of a well-developed welfare model. I was also socialized into believing that equality in terms of gender and social class is the sort of most important thing. So please excuse me, because that's where where I come from, and how I might address the sort of the failures and also hopefully the solutions. But I think, and maybe I won't put that sort of failure on my own shoulders, but thinking more about societies and how we address care. And I think one of the failures is that we often treat care as a private, either individual or family issue, rather than seeing it as a societal infrastructure. And by infrastructure, I mean that this is about the policies in place, the institutions, the resources available. Because we often talk about having infrastructure in society. We want the bus to leave at time, and we want investments in the road so we can go in our cars. We want supermarkets to work. So all things around us is part of an infrastructure. But often we forget about the care infrastructure, because this work too often is invisible and also has a very low status. I think also one failure, perhaps, and I'm really happy about your theme of the conference, but it is that we tend to think about policies at certain stages of our lives. So we talk about childcare, we talk about elder care, for instance, we talk about maybe care for people who have disability and so on. And I think we need to understand that all this is interconnected, also because we are all part of societies. We are very often part of families, and people are in different care situations. And so it all is related in somehow. I think families are still expected to absorb care responsibilities when formal policies are under pressure, or even if they are underdeveloped. And I think that what we see, also because our worlds are changing, we have aging societies, we have increasing number of people who report that they're not feeling good in terms of well-being and so on. We have changing demographics in terms of fertility rates are dropping and so on. But we are seeing, I think, growing inequalities because people have different access to resources. And this is something I'm going to raise also in some of the other questions. But I think the problem is that when we still consider care to be this something that takes place in the background, the inequalities are enforced, and some people who are in a bad situation in terms of dealing with care needs are finding themselves really struggling and facing these inequalities. I think we've got some new concepts within our research. My colleague Teppo Kröger from Finland has coined the concept of care poverty. And I think that is useful in understanding that when care needs are not met, it's not necessarily because of individual characteristics or situation, but it's because of how the policies, the care infrastructure around us is not working. It's also part of culture that we have, and this is interesting, I think, because of between different countries, we have different expectations of what care we would like to meet and how it should be, our care needs should be met. But the combination of those two, in terms of structure and culture, creates this situation of feeling that you are in poverty in terms of having your care needs met. And I think that's a useful concept for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Ida, same question.
Right. First of all, thank you for inviting me here. I have to say, Tine actually took all my point out of context, and in fact, I swear we did not talk to each other about this. So we were both thinking on the same wavelength, I think. Yeah. So I also wanted to say, in terms of your question about what are the kind of biggest failure in the way we're thinking about, care and care work are exactly those 2 points that you raised. One is about sort of thinking care and care work as a kind of private individual commitment and responsibility separated from the larger social, economic, and political ecosystem. And I think what we need is to really begin to think of the care and care work as a very important part, an integrated part of larger social, economic, and political ecosystem. Just to give you an example, just to enhance the point that you raised, Tine, is I work in area of the care economy, and we're sort of mapping out and calculating the shapes and sizes of paid and unpaid care work that's been done in 9 different countries, and using this data to develop care and gender-sensitive macroeconomic models of care economies in these countries. What we know is, for example, because we are assuming, well, at least economists and most policymakers and probably many researchers assume unpaid care work that's been done within household or in the community because it doesn't involve monetary exchange of money, it actually is considered kind of free labor, a kind of work that is sort of there, done voluntarily, out of love, out of whatever. But the problem is that because of that assumption, it never gets translated into the national accounting system, which means that it does not get calculated into the national GDP. So as far as the national GDP is concerned, the only care work are those paid care work that's been done, but then that's divided into different sectors. And so when we calculate, we're right now calculating the size of the paid and unpaid care work in Canada. We're hoping to get this calculation done by this fall. But earlier research show that, globally, unpaid care work contribute something like 11 trillion US dollars to the global economy. And I don't know whether you know the size of global GDP, but that comes to about close to 10% of the global GDP. That's a value that is missing completely. And because it's missing and invisible, policymakers don't think this as a part of the policy agenda, and we can't move forward to it. So I think it's really important to think of care and care work, both paid and unpaid care work, as part of the larger social, economic, and political sort of ecosystem in that larger infrastructural sort of framework. The other thing I wanted to add, similar to you, what Tine said, was the compartmentalization of care work in terms of based on different age groups and different sort of categories of care, right? Whether it's sort of physical care, mental care, or care for the people with disabilities. This kind of compartmentalization of care basically siloizes the kind of care system that needs to be actually talking to each other, because these are often very much integrated. What we need is to look at care and care work as a kind of continuum of work, relationships, and interactions across life course, starting from when you're born to when you die, and across family, household, to community, to institution. And so I think we need to have a much broader continuum of care kind of perspective, both in terms of the socioeconomic and political institutions, as well as in terms of the different age category, geography, location kind of perspective. I'll stop there.
Thank you. And Ellen, same question.
Well, so everybody hear me good? So I love both the idea that we should count care in GDP, and I also love the idea that we shouldn't just view it as an individual issue. One of the things I've been thinking about is the enormous power, even though it's not true everywhere, but especially in the US, that employers have to set work hours and conditions. And even where you have the right to request a flexible schedule, the employer can turn it down or and employees don't have much power when organizations don't adapt. And I would like us not to be so reactive in how we deal with care, but look at how to redesign work to allow people to participate in both roles. We are an aging society. Many of us have done reviews showing that care needs even involve single people from mental health, over the life course. And it does not go down, especially for women as they age, but all really it's something that with war, polycrises, climate change, school shootings, we need to have work more flexible to allow people to have multiple roles that are meaningful for them and not force people to choose. So the trade-off perspective, regardless of what country you're in, seems to dominate in some ways where we don't see how helping individuals with care needs benefits business and society. And I don't want just the business case, and I don't want the siloing also of the social case. They are interconnected. We do not have healthy societies when we do not have healthy economies, healthy people, healthy families.
And this isn't on the script. I'm already going off script, but I have a follow-up based on your answers in wondering, be it a workplace, be it, an organization, be it a state, is there any place that seems to be addressing the continuum of care that's not sort of siloing the separate pieces of, early childhood from elder care, from that really is thinking and taking this more integrated perspective across the life course? Any models that you're seeing so far? It looks like we have a lot of work to do. All right, we may come back to that, but I'll go to our next question. So I'll start opposite ends. I'll start with Ellen here. The care policies in organizations that you study, do you find that current policies are reducing inequality, or do you find that there's a reorganization of inequality? So are you seeing sort of any trade-offs in the work that you're doing?
So I think in most cases, we are reorganizing inequality and we're not addressing it very well. And I did a review with Brenda Lauch from Simon Fraser on the different problems in the labor market that people face regarding flexibility. So people such as many of us here, professors, professionals, leaders in companies, we love our work most of the time, and we have an overwork culture, and we have too many work hours that we're working. So that's, the shutting work off problem. And then at the middle, I've studied unionized workplaces. I've seen unions sort of disagree on how to support workers, make everybody work the same schedule. That's great. But I've also seen not everybody wants a full-time job. They want part-time work with benefits so they could care for family. And so I've seen gender trade-offs within unions and other forms of trade-offs. And at the lower end, people can't get enough hours, the right hours, enough, to even care for families. So we're not even dealing with different labor market needs. I have a paper coming out that was an NIH randomized clinical trial, 10 years of work, training supervisors to talk about using sick and family leave policies, because in many companies, it's relegated to the human resources department. And if your boss doesn't support it or they know how to access it, people don't use the policies they have. So the narrative in the US is we don't have national paid leave. Well, we do have 46 million people now that are covered by paid leave at places like our universities, Microsoft, many other big companies. We have 80% of the people covered by sick leave. People are not accessing those policies. They're afraid, or some cases in some states, even where legally mandated, there's studies showing, like in California, others, workers don't know how to access. And I've had people from other countries, including Scandinavia, interested in some training we have for supervisors, because even in these wonderful countries that are much better than the US, it's not implemented as well as we can to reduce inequality. And lastly, workers who use these policies, even if they're able to access, there are differential consequences for people who use flexibility in terms of job loss. And I worry that AI and other labor market disruptions are going to make people even more afraid to use the benefits that they have.
Thank you. Ido, same question for you about our current care policies reducing inequality, or do you see reorganization?
Okay. So I work in the area of policy, both national and global. And I would say that there are a lot of sort of talks and promises, policy articulations about, wanting to address this issue. But I honestly, I don't see, I can't see sort of outcomes being connected to those policies. So I'm thinking about many countries that have introduced, work and family harmonization policies, such as extended and supported, maternity, paternity, parental leave policies for, people with children, care leave policies for people who has care, who need to do care of their families and friends, all sorts of policies trying to address this issue. And yet, if I were to use the metrics of sort of, ILO and many UN organizations have come up with some of the keywords like, recognition and reduction, recognition, and redistribution. If I use the metrics of redistribution of care work, say between women and men, right? Both paid and unpaid care work, and redistribution of care work between, paid care work between women, native-born women and women of color, immigrant women, foreign migrant care workers. I don't see any of those redistribution, any significant redistribution of care happening both within the household as well as outside the household. At least I can't see it on the data. And I think it has to do with the fact that while we kind of know this, that the care should be redistributed, but I think our employment system and the way the labor market structures are organized really does not create lots of barriers for sort of people to redistribute care within the household between men and women. Has to do with the type of work people do and the wages that they get. I also don't see how the current wage structures of care workers can really help sort of redistribute the care work between native-born and between women and men, as well as native-born or women of color, immigrant women, and foreign care workers. So unless those things change structurally, I can't see a real sort of clear outcomes. And so how do we do this? I think one of the first things we need to do is really begin to recognize the value and skills of care work that's been done both paid and unpaid, which and I always harp on this, which means one of the first targets that has to happen is national sort of occupational classification system that is so old-fashioned. It was created back in 19th and early 20th century based on the industrial labor market, industrial economy that valued male, machine-based, mechanical kind of skills that and really did not take into account the kind of sort of emotional, cognitive, and soft skills that we need in 21st century. So I really think we need to rethink about and reassess and reorganize national occupational classification system that would really change the skills level of the care workers. And with that, hopefully, that would then change the occupational status and the wages of care workers. So I'm kind of saying we need significant, serious structural reforms of the labor market and the way we think about the labor market and work these days. That's more fit for 21st century. I think the trade-off might be, this too. So first, I think that means also public investment in care and care work. So the trade-off might be, first, maybe higher tax. And I have no problem with higher tax. I've been kind of thinking about higher tax. Canada's tax level right now is about average of OECD. I think in light of aging population and more women in employment and changing the kind of changing labor market structure, I think we could put a little bit more in the taxation. I don't know about US because it's much lower than the OECD average. I think US should put more, raise their tax rate as well. I'm not sure that runs politically. I think one of the challenges might be, as our Prime Minister Marconi mentioned, we're at the moment of very uncertain sort of context. And I could imagine policymakers thinking, okay, how the alternative is changing the tax allocations by putting more tax onto care work and family support and things like that. That means, shall we reduce tax contribution, that tax revenue from the security and NATO to care and work? That might be a pretty tough political challenge right now, I would think. So that's one way that I think. But then on the other hand, the way I also want to rationalize is that if you look at the happiness survey, which are the countries that are happiest on Earth? It's mainly Nordic countries and countries with much higher tax rate than we have. So I think in terms of having more happier, more cohesive, and more positive looking society, I think it's worth putting a bit more money into tax. So that's my pitch.
Thank you. Tine, same question. The policies that you're studying, reducing inequality or reorganizing it?
Yeah. And first of all, can I say I'm all for higher taxes? So, but I would also say, consider how you spend the tax revenue, because actually, the Nordic countries, the tax rates are not necessarily higher than other countries when you look at labor market contributions and so on. But we have a different, maybe, ambition in how we spend it. And this is where I see the policies can be quite effective and actually reduce inequalities. My favorite example, and especially since Denmark also introduced the father's quota in the parental leave, and I know there are many here today from the International Leave Network, and this this is something we've studied over time. What does it mean that you introduce in the parental leave a certain number of weeks that the other partner, meaning often the father, has to take? And it's very clear that this is one way that policies can actually help reducing gender inequalities in leave take-up. And we know that has, of course, major effects in terms of women's labor market participation, their life incomes, and so on and so forth. So this is I think where policies are really efficient and can change inequalities. Being a comparativist and have studied care models over many years, it's been one of my interests in how these are composed and what kind of responsibilities there are inherent in different. If you look at Great Britain, or you look at in south of Europe, in France and Italy and so on, and what I think we can see over time, that we're really trying to learn from each other. And it's not to say that there are not differences between the care models today. There certainly still is. But I think we've been trying out with different sort of inspiration from each other. Can we have a more formalized care model? Can we introduce market principles? Can we bring in the family to more sense, and so on? And I think doing that has not necessarily reduced the inequalities that we have in our systems. For instance, if you rely more on the market and also in terms of wanting to have more choice, the possibility of exiting and choosing another provider, these are very good principles, but it certainly doesn't reduce the inequalities, because there's also then a matter of whether you can afford a market-based solution. And some people, for sure, certainly can't. There's also the reliance on the family. I've already touched upon that of course not everybody has a family. Not everybody has a family that has the resources to help you with your care needs. And this is for sure creating inequalities. And we know from the Danish studies that those who have resources in terms of good economic situation, they would rather buy services on the market. Because they do not want to rely on the family, and they don't want to put pressure on the family. Whereas those who do not have, they often have to rely on the family. So it's creating inequalities between people. Something that occupies my mind at the moment is whether we can look more to the community. And I think maybe this is where we can enforce solidarity and facilitate mutual support networks in the community. So we have a project, Sustain Care, where we try to develop community circles, which are little groups of people in the local neighborhood who commit to helping each other with day support, not more time-intensive personal care, anything like that, but just to be each other's support network. And I'm very curious about what we might see with such community circles. We've stolen the idea from the Netherlands, where it's been very effectful, and it's now on a nationwide basis. They have introduced it. So I'm quite curious to see this is going. We're now introducing into Nordic countries and a Baltic country. So I think we can see whether it brings more a sense of belonging and resilience, perhaps also in these local communities. But again, we have to consider that there are inequalities, and they might be reinforced by such models. Because some communities are more resourceful than others. The neighborhoods will differ in terms of the trust levels and organizational capacity, and whatever people can set off time for and are willing to be a part of. So I think also we have to be aware, and we are in our project, that such community-based approaches can actually reinforce the inequalities which there might be in local communities. So I think I want to say that this might be, for me at least, it's a bit of a, okay, let's look at that and see if we could get something to work. And it's not that I'm saying that community solutions do not work, but I think they are, and that would be probably my key message, that most of these market-based, family-based, or community-based solutions work best if there are strong public institutions supporting them. And I think the challenge is that neither the market, the family, or the community can stand alone. We have to have strong institutions behind, because care inequalities tend to accumulate rather than so one you can say one solution cannot compensate. Often these inequalities are accumulating over time. Thank you.
Thank you. So I realize I started out with a bit of a downer asking about failures and inequalities, but we're going to shift a little now. I think it's Ido's turn to start first here. And I'm going to ask you sort of what's most urgent to you? What is one change? And I know you can probably tell us 20 changes, but what's one change that you think would most improve care, well-being, equality across the life course in the next decade?
Yeah, there are a lot of changes we need to do, but so I'm trying to be very expedient and sort of practical, and it might sound very economistic, but and it's because I'm currently working on this right now. I think one thing that could really change is really to sort of recognize much more clearly recognize and embed the value of care, both paid and unpaid care work, into the national accounting system. In other words, make both paid and unpaid care work much more visible to us as an important part of our social and economic system. And because I think once people and particularly policymakers recognize that value, that amount in terms of clear, quantifiable, amount, I think they could then begin to start thinking, what needs to be done. I think the policymakers, because I work so closely with national and provincial governments, policymakers really do not pay attention until you actually literally have to slap them in the face and say, this is how much it's worth. Once they recognize, then they will start thinking about ways to sort of figure out. Because I think that there's a lot going on, a lot that we can say about this value of paid and unpaid care work in terms of how it's sustaining our social and economic system. If this is the case, investing in care and care economy would seem to me a real no-brainer, because what it will do, it will not only reduce the kind of tension and the loss that people have in terms of, in terms of lost wage hours, lost sort of absenteeisms, and having to even leave the workplace in order to provide care, in terms of that economic loss, but also it will be investing in the care economy will be a very positive employment generation. And it's a job generators. And that's so fitting of the 21st century sort of economic infrastructure and economic system. So it seems to me it's a no-brainer. And so in order to convince that kind of forward movement and forward thinking policy, I think we really have to make it very clear that value that of the paid and unpaid care work, and really begin to change sort of find policy tools that would really reconfigure and change that dynamics. So yeah, that's my pitch.
Thank you. Ellen, one change, just one change. Okay, you give us three.
Increase the supply of quality, affordable child and elder care, whatever kind of care in the unpaid and paid labor market. So how would you do that? One example was I did a project a long time ago with Steelcase, which now has been bought out, but they trained family daycare providers that were friends and spouses of their employees. And that increased, like your community example, the supply of care in the neighborhood. It would reduce deserts of care. We have a lot of places where people don't have access to care. Another thing I think we have to do as that strategy, so it's still one idea, is to make care cool, just like we have STEM and AI. So I was on the Michigan Governor's Child Care Task Force years ago. We gave awards to employers, to people, just like we're giving awards for STEM and AI. We need to change the narrative. Like, this is cool. We might need to have kids rotate, to do care for a while, and incentives for shared care where you get more benefits, and somehow if you have everybody in the family doing something. Right now it's just really segregated. So all one idea, but lots of tactics.
Love it. Thank you. Tina?
Thank you. I think I want a T-shirt with that, making care cool. Well, yes, I think first of all, we need to have a model. We have to move away from a model of care as a crisis response and rather think of it as a model of care prevention. And I will elaborate a bit of that because I think if we could think more about care as an investment in every human being, I think it would transform our whole perspective of not seeing it as an expense and go away from this is invisible labor and so on, but actually seeing that this is something that we invest in every human being. And I think we have very good evidence that using the social investment approach in terms of children, investing in early childhood care and education and in through the educational system really pays off. I'm sorry for using the payoff because again, then it becomes a matter of money and labor market participation and so on. I think we have to move beyond that. But I think we need to stretch this social investment model into other areas of life, and here I'm in particular thinking about into old age as well. Often when I talk to people about the social investment perspective in old age, and they say, is there really something, is there a developmental perspective and so on? And yes, I would say there is. And because I'm using one example from the Nordic countries, where we have both in Denmark and Norway introduced reablement. So when people apply for home care, instead of receiving traditional home care, often I illustrate it by saying it's like they say, okay, sit down and let's assist you in various ways, and you don't have to get up or anything like that. Reablement is a more active approach, asking people, first of all, what's important to you? How would you like to see your life after a crisis, falling down the stairs or whatever? And can we help you achieve that? And it's trying to make people regain their ability to help themselves in their daily functioning. So it's actually a developmental approach. And the good thing about this also is that we hear from many care workers that it's really fun to work with, because it's not all about illnesses, death and dying, but it's actually helping people to be able to help themselves again. So I think it's a very valuable approach, also an approach that has proven to improve people's quality of life. We've still not been able to say it actually saves money, because that's the next thing, of course, what policymakers want to hear. But I think trying to see the social investment perspective across the life course is really important. And we know that we have a lot of good evidence. We have policymakers who had, at some point, at least in Europe, paid attention to this approach, but we still need to push on and make everybody understand that it's about an investment in the individual, but certainly also in society. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying to figure out if I can sneak in one more question before Q&A. So I'm giving you a prompt here. There will be Q&A very soon, so get your questions ready, and I'll ask for a short response on a question about what a workplace or society organized around care priorities might require us to give up and why it might be worth it. Ido, you touched on this a little bit with taxes. I think Tina, I think it's your turn maybe to start on this one.
So what we would need to give up, I think, is an understanding about productivity, that everything has to be about growth. And I think we need to understand that we should also invest in relationships. We should also understand that good caring takes time because it's built on relations. It's built on understanding the person that you're caring for, understanding how they see their needs, what preferences they have for their life situation, and so on. But I think we're quite obsessed with being as productive as possible, and this often creates huge challenges when we're trying to make care systems more efficient and so on. So I think we need to consider that we are living in a time. I'm quite inspired by the German sociologist Hartmut Rosa, who has argued that in these modern times, modern societies are really characterized by social acceleration. So there's a constant pressure to produce more and to do more and to move faster. But this does not fit together with an understanding of care. And I think, and of course, Nancy Folber and John Tronto have been talking about these issues also. But I think increasingly we are gaining an understanding that this continuous acceleration and aiming for increased productivity is really creating some tensions in our society. So we need to value time, because time, as I say, is an essence in care. And we need to realize that it's not what maybe brings the highest economic returns that is always valuable for society, but certainly also what supports human relationships and enable people to flourish across the life course. So it's bringing in a different understanding of what is valuable for us as human beings.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so tax is not working so well, right? At least not for some people. I was just thinking, and this is completely like relationship is a hard work, right? So but I think one of the things that we may have to let go is the comfort of our current kind of norms about care and care work, about sort of being able to get care for cheap, and being able to hire sort of all sorts of kind of different care as we need it, being that kind of comfort of the current norm. I think it's harder than you think, getting rid of that, replacing that to the new thinking about care as a valued labor, as a way to sort of organize your workplace and employment, as a way to sort of have care fit within the current labor market system, and the way we think about care workers and the way we treat care workers in sort of from childcare all the way to long-term care. I think it might be harder than we think that we could do. I know you will probably have no problem, but for many people, it might be a pretty hard thing to give up.
Thank you. Ellen.
So I think building on these, we're very short run perspective and payoff. And I hate to say it, but like the stock market is driving an awful lot. I've been in the Silicon Valley at a fellowship at Stanford, and they're not talking about care when all the sessions I went to there. And I was just at a planning session. Lonnie was there as well on the future of work at Berkeley. 3 days, people are saying, how do we reorganize work to care more about people? And it feels so blue sky to me because our incentives in our society, as you were saying, don't support the long run investment in families and workers, and people have agency. They have to respond too. We are so short term oriented. So I don't know how we move on to take this longer term perspective. And I don't know if Asian countries are doing it better. The societies value the long term. That's not how we're wired today. So I don't know how we change the narrative, but I think we have to look for the long term.
Thank you. And on that, we're at perfect time to open it up for Q&A. So Steve, are you running microphones? So if you have a question for any of our panelists, please raise your hand and Steve will bring you a microphone. Oh, there's Anita. Where am I going? Anita's right in front of me.
Thank you so much to all the panelists. My question is for Tina. Thank you for sharing about the community circles who commit to helping each other. And I think it's a great idea. My question is, which you raised around trust. So I don't know if you have an answer, but in conditions of low trust or where neoliberal policies have eroded a sense of communities, where might communities or governments or institutions then start?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Can I return in 1.5 years when I know more? And that's one of our concerns. Is this going only to work in more resourceful local communities? But speaking to the Dutch researchers, they say that trust is built up because as people engage with each other, get to know each other, then at some point of time, and also I think what to me is very inspirational with these circles is that it's reciprocal. So it's from the understanding that everybody has something to contribute with. And in the Netherlands, an older person might be housebound, but can maybe look out of the window for a school child coming home and so on, or help with some homework or whatever. So it's the understanding that everybody has resources and can help each other in some ways. But I think trust is something that has to be built up. I mean, basing it on the local community, there will be maybe some relationships already, some people knowing each other. And for me, the big thing, of course, is also, are these circles going to be inclusive, or are they going to sort of close themselves around people that you like already or that you know of, and so on. But let's have this conversation again in 1.5 years.
Other questions? Any questions?
Thank you very much. It's an excellent panel and I enjoyed the discussions. I have a question to Itopant. I mainly came from Oxford University. I research on domestic division labor. I like your ideas of re-evaluating the care cost, including paid and unpaid. And as you said, that it's important to give, make people aware what's the value of care. Yet the current, and your suggestion is to have a satellite account of this. But the current approach of doing that satellite accounts is using the current cost of care, paid care work, and then equivalents of that to calculate how much women provide unpaid care. And then if that's according to their demographic information on that, they pay, if we hire a care worker per hour, how much it is worth. So if your calculation of that amount of, I don't know, trillion or billions of money is using the current standard, if we evaluate at using a much more expensive level of care work as a more skilled job, that it will be jumping, surging. And another point you're mentioning is you say that to make change, we need to make policy makers to be aware of it. But I was just wondering whether it is because they are not aware of it or they are just taking advantage of it. Because I think I feel this panel haven't, we are all aware of it, but we didn't really bring into attention. All this is because women do most of it. And politics and policies are quite male-dominated, and politics, if we don't bring gender equality is the core of the political agenda, I don't think that will be moving anyway. Because all political parties, if they put tax rise, would be a political suicide in the elections. It's not a bigger, wider movement of gender equality that move women's voters and also more progressive men to support gender equality to move together. I don't think just make people, policymakers aware of the cause or how much women can contribute to the labor markets afterwards would move anything. So I feel, yeah, it is a utopia. All the change would be nice, but without bigger movement, I don't see how we can move to this end. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think you have a lot of questions all bundled into one. So I'll try my best to sort of answer. So you're right that the conventional calculation, so we're now into more methodological issue, right? Conventional calculation of the value of the care economies, mainly using existing standard sort of data sets. That means most of the standard national data sets collects the work and amount of work and the value of work, care, quote unquote, care and care related work, and calculating that in terms of part of as a percentage of the GDP. So what we're doing is, as I said, we are trying to, measure the shapes and sizes of the care infrastructures, both paid and unpaid care, from childcare all the way to elder care. In order to do this, what we did in the 9 countries is actually to run our own nationally representative quantitative survey of paid and unpaid care work that's been done for children and for the older adults, and follow that up with the in-depth interview survey. Each of the in-depth interview surveys for these different categories has to be more than n size of 50. So we have this both quantitative and qualitative data for 9 different countries. And on top of that, we're using Tine survey, labor force survey, and general household survey. We're amalgamating all these data to develop social accounting matrix that will show the parameters for for a CGE model, which is the model that we use for macroeconomic modeling. Now, the reason why we had to do our own survey was precisely because we could not rely on the national data set. And so we do have data, particularly based, knowing also the Time surveys data set, we combine them. And in terms of calculating the size, the value component, there are 3 different ways of calculating, right? That the costs of the value. One is replacement, one is average wage, the other one is opportunity cost. And depending on which one you use, the value becomes different. Of course, opportunity costs will have the probably highest value, because it will be like, if I give up 1 hour of my time to look after my child at my wage level, how much would that mean? Like that kind of thing. So we do have the calculations for each of those. So we could value this. In terms of convincing policymakers about the value of investing in care economies, right? I think other people have already done this. The very good work that's been done by UN Women's Budgeting Group back in 2016, 2018, that looks at the government investing 2% of their GDP in what they call social infrastructure, meaning all childcare, elder care, education, all these health, social care-related infrastructure, work versus what they called physical infrastructure, which is roadworks, road maintenance, building construction, that normally the government uses as a way of economic stimulus policy, because it's very visible, very quick, and it shows that it creates a lot of, mainly men's job. So so this group, women, UK women budgeting groups, kind of said, okay, let's compare the employment generation, potential of the countries investing 2% of their GDP in social versus physical infrastructure. How many jobs would they create? Well, the outcome was that it creates way more jobs by investing 2% in social infrastructure. And I could give you the calculations, the equation for that. That work looked at 6 OECD countries, including US, Australia, Denmark, and many places. It didn't have Canada in it. So I said to them, this is really unfortunate. You don't have Canada in it. And they said, you know what, Ito, if you're so interested in doing Canada, why don't you just do it yourself? So I did in 2019. And my calculation came out using the same equation, came out exactly the same. You generate a lot more employment, both in direct employment and in indirect subsidiary employment, meaning like how many jobs would it create in terms of these care workers going to Tim Hortons and Starbucks to get coffee and that kind of thing. It shows clearly significant, much larger employment generation for social infrastructure. And then somebody, I don't know who, but somebody complained and they said, well, that's obvious because wage of care workers are much lower than the wages of the construction worker. So we said, okay, fine. We will equalize the wage of care workers and construction workers, make the wages of care work same as construction workers. The result was still more jobs created through investing in social infrastructure, not as much as the first time, but still a lot more. So in the end, my conclusion is that it's a no-brainer for the policymakers. We show this for the policymakers, and they actually say, yeah, I think we get it. So I think there is something to be said about being able to show sort of these analysis in terms of the job creation. Now, this is just job creation, not to say other kind of, additional kind of benefits that you get by more people working, by more people working, more taxes, greater gender equality potential, because a lot of these jobs go to women and supporting their families. So, yeah.
Thank you. So we are actually going to close off questions right now, but you may find our panelists at the gala reception if you have more. But I want to close with a lightning round. I've asked our panelists to very succinctly, 2 minutes or less, answer a two-pronged question. And we're going to start with Ellen, where I've asked, where do you think research is most urgently needed? And what's one thing that gives you hope?
I think we first need to measure work-family conflict, care. We're using the same measures. Right now, there's such a proliferation of measures, and we measure role occupancy, like are you a parent or not? We don't measure, are you the one that interrupts your job to care for people, the type of activities of daily living. So let's measure the same thing across these countries. I guess what gives me hope is that the shared care is increasing, and maybe that's the path forward to get, everyone across the society involved in care.
Thank you. Tina?
Yeah, thank you. Well, in terms of research, what I would like to see was looking more into individual people's, if I can call it, care careers over the life course, because I think that would be really interesting to think about care as an investment also from the individual person, because it's an investment in relations, and giving and receiving and so on. And I think we very often, and that goes back to my first point about, we see this at particular phases of the life course. So trying to put together biographies of people's care involvements, I think that could be very, very interesting. And also to see if inequalities accumulate over time, or there are ways to navigate, or and within different systems, of course. We have to do something in Canada, yeah, yes. So I think that would be really interesting. What gives me hope is looking at, I think, what happened after the pandemic, and sorry for bringing that up, but I think we started talking about care and seeing it having a different value, understanding that it's very important in our lives. It gives me hope to look at younger generations who I think are better at sort of stopping up and talking about, is this good? We are talking in the Nordic countries about, we have a whole generation who are expressing that they do not feel they have a well-being in life, and I think it's a big worry. But at the same time, it's also a reminder that this is very important for the younger generation, and I think that has inspired us, and not only in the Nordic countries. But we now see different places in New Zealand, in Wales, Norway, Denmark, are talking about having introducing well-being economies, where we again, instead of thinking about productivity, thinking about we should measure the development of our societies in how well-being people feel, and I think that's very important, and that gives me hope. Yeah.
Thank you. Ida?
Okay, I talked too much, so I will keep it really short. I think all sorts of research should be done all at once. No, I'm serious. But here's a caveat. The important thing is, I think it would be great if all these research actually talk to each other. So I think of more collaboration and research cooperations and things like that. So that's my sort of, I think that would be great. My hope is, like both Tine and other people have said, I think people are beginning to think and talk about care and care work, and through a life course so context. I mean, this conference is great, right? And I mean, I think we're sort of, people are beginning to clue into this as an important sort of research and policy agenda. I think we still have a long way to go, but I think we're beginning to kind of knock on that door. So that gives me hope.
Thank you. Please join me in thanking our panelists for sharing with us today. We are now going to begin the WFRN Awards ceremony and then proceed immediately into a reception where we will give you food and wine. So we are going to begin. Please welcome Victoria Daniel, who will be presenting the Kathleen Christensen Dissertation Award. Oh, great. Oh, I just revealed it for you. Okay. Take this one. Okay, perfect.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am delighted to present this award, the Kathleen Christensen Dissertation Award. This award recognizes a recent graduate of a doctoral program who has already made a significant contribution to the work and family knowledge base. The Kathleen Christensen Dissertation Award has been created to encourage doctoral candidates and early career scholars to reach for and achieve high and rigorous standards of research relevant to work and family areas of study. It provides financial support to a promising work-family scholar to initiate post-dissertation research. This award is co-sponsored and co-selected by the Work and Family Researchers Network and the Society for Human Resource Management. This award is made possible by the generous support from the Northrop Grumman Corporation, the Families and Work Institute, the SHRM Foundation, the SHRM National Study of the Changing Workforce, and the Work and Family Researchers Network members. We have our first. So our first 2026, our award recipient is Mei-Ying Lee. You can come up. Over here. Didn't see you on the side. So I'll just read your bio. WFRN is honored to recognize Mei-Ying Lee as recipient of the 2026 Kathleen Christensen Dissertation Award. Dr. Lee's dissertation, A Tale of Two Labor Markets, How Gender Wage Inequalities Associated with Occupational Sex Segregation Vary in High and Low Skilled Occupations, United States, 1960 to 2019, interrogates the link between occupational feminization and the gender gap in wages. Dr. Lee completed her PhD in sociology at the University of Southern California. As Professor Jennifer Hook details in her nomination letter, Dr. Lee's research utilizes longitudinal designs to examine inequalities in labor market outcomes as linked to gender, family, class, race, ethnicity. Her dissertation makes major contributions to work-family research, revealing how valuations of occupations are shaped by gendered family roles and how these relationships change over historical time. Her analyses show that longstanding wage penalty associated with occupational feminization was strongest during the period when mothers entered paid employment in large numbers, and that this association weakens and even reverses in highly skilled occupations as continuous employment across the life course becomes normative for women. The impact of her research is already proving significant, with one chapter published in Social Forces, recognized with the Robert D. Mayer Graduate Student Paper Award from the ASA section on Inequality, Poverty, and Mobility, as well as receiving honorable mention for the Burt Best Student Paper Award from the ASA section on Economic Sociology. That's a lot. Wow, that's a good job. Mei-Ying Lee's dissertation advances work-family research by showing how the valuation of occupations is shaped by gendered family roles and how changing norms about women's continuous employment, especially motherhood, transform the long-standing link between occupational feminization and wages. Mei-Ying Lee is currently a postdoctoral researcher in the Jeb E. Brooks School of Public Policy at Cornell University. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here and have this recognition. I've always wanted to have this opportunity to officially thank Jen for her mentorship and all of my mentors along the way. They have been there to support me at every step of my both personal and professional achievements. And as I was working, developing this work and dissertation in general, like Jen, my mentors, and the field in general has constantly encouraged me and other young scholars to really have our own identity, have our own innovations. But that's such a huge challenge, because no matter what good ideas I thought I had, I look around and there has already been a huge amount of good work that has been done by many of you here. And then eventually there was one day I thought about my own life. As someone in this generation, we have benefited tremendously from your work, not only like a scholarship work, but also like huge social changing movements that have waves of feminist movements battling inequality for gender, for racial inequalities. And then just look at today, we have so many women and minority groups of people who can come to such a prestigious conference. And how come we still have this stalled gender revolution. And then I started to look underneath these changes and eventually found some evidence that there has been improvements. And as I was writing it up, it almost felt like this like small flower blooming in the desert. So we do see some changes, positive changes, although it may also indicate, new directions or new problems. But it could also be positive as we are still finding new directions as the younger generations to move forward and develop our work. Thank you.
Oh, congratulations. Okay, we are also delighted to give our 2026 honorable mention to Monlin Tsai. Over here. WFRN recognizes Dr. Monlin Tsai with honorable mention for the 2026 Kathleen Christensen Dissertation Award. Dr. Tsai's dissertation, Power and Status in Public and Private Spheres, Gender, Workplace Authority, and Family Dynamics in China, focuses on how workplace authority interconnects with family dynamics to shape and reshape gender inequalities. Dr. Tsai completed her PhD in sociology at the University of British Columbia. As Professor Yue Qian details in her nomination letter, Dr. Tsai's dissertation represents an exceptional scholarly contribution to the work and family knowledge base. It examines first how gender, parenthood, and employment sector work together shape individuals' access to and scope of workplace authority. Second, how individuals and their spouses' workplace authority influences the gender division of housework among Chinese couples. And three, how individuals and their spouses' workplace authority is associated with subjective well-being, with a particular focus on variations by gender and gender ideology. Dr. Tsai's dissertation reveals how motherhood penalties exist in the private sector, but not in the state sector, whereas a fatherhood premium exists in the state sector, but not in the private sector. A critical insight into how gender and parental norms, unequal divisions of childcare, and institutional contexts in China reproduce and widen the gender leadership gaps. She also shows that women's access to workplace authority not only matters for power dynamics at work, but also how they extend to couple negotiations at home, shaping distributions of housework responsibilities. By examining indicators of happiness, Dr. Tsai illuminates the liberating potentials gained embracing gender egalitarianism. The importance of her research has been recognized by the Canadian Population Society and the Canadian Sociological Association. Congratulations.
First of all, thank you so much. I'm truly honored to receive this honorable mention that honors Dr. Kathleen Christensen, and I'm also very grateful for the award committee and the WFRN, as well as the SHRM for recognizing my work. And this is especially meaningful to me as this comes from a community that I identify with and also whose work I admire. So I also wanted to express my deepest gratitude to my doctoral supervisor, Yue Qian, who can't be here today in person, but I believe is online sharing this moment. So Yue, thank you for all your dedicated mentorship and constructive feedback and generous support as I developed this dissertation and as I finished the doctoral journey. And also, I would like to express sincere thanks to my committee members, Beth Hirsch and Sylvia Fuller, who is here to celebrate together. And our collaborations have transformed my research skills and inspired and continue to inspire my work-family research in the long run. And I hope to make more contributions to this field, hopefully in the promising directions. And it feels really great to have this chance to say thank you to you both in public. So also a thank you to everyone here. Yeah, so last, thanks again for all the work the WFR organizing team has done to make this wonderful conference happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Oh, am I on? Am I on? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, let's use this one. Thank you, Victoria. There we go. Now you can hear me. And please join me in welcoming past president Ellen Galinsky, presenting the Ellen Galinsky Generative Researcher Award.
Thank you. Well, I first want to start by saying how weird it is to have an award in your name. I remember getting an email saying that there was going to be an Ellen Galinsky Award, going, what? That feels really strange. But if there is going to be such an award, I am thrilled that it is for generative research. We're at a pivot time in the work family field, and we have a need more than ever for thinking outside of the box, as our last panel just demonstrated. So let me read what this award is about. It recognizes a work family researcher or, and really importantly, a team, because research is a team sport, who have contributed breakthrough thinking to the work family field, either by theory, by measures, or data sets that lead to expansive application, a little high bar, huh? Innovation and diffusion, including the sharing of research opportunities in the spirit of open science. The 2026 Ellen Galinsky Generative Research Award is awarded to Sarah Flood, Melissa Milkey, and Liana Sayer for their development, support, and use of time use data. This is data that I have used forever, and it's just really quite thrilling that you all are the recipients this year. Their collaboration exemplifies the impact of their work. Dr. Floods and Sayers co-led the IPUM's time use for over a decade, securing NIH and NSF funding to maintain, to expand it, as well as to fund the 2021 well-being module of the American Time Use Survey. They also hosted several WFRN workshops on time use data, really also important to share the knowledge. Dr. Milkey's and Sayer are longtime research collaborators with over 5,000 collaborations on just 3 co-authored articles examining women and men's housework and childcare, including the most cited article published in any ASA journal in 2025. These remarkably 3 generative scholars are currently working on a new project on the meanings of time, which you talked about in your big ideas session last time, in various activities across gender and other social groups, examining changes in parents' time use allocation and well-being from 2010 to 2021. So let's see, I think we start with, do we have them all come together? Steve.
Yeah, come together.
Come together. You win it as a team. Well, they're a team, but I'm going to read about them individually. Dr. Sarah Flood is a fierce advocate for public data to advance science. She's developed a deep expertise with the American Time Use Survey and pushed the boundaries of its use through research on work, family, and gender across the life course. Through workshops, through webinars, and individual consultations, she has helped demystify the use of traditionally complex time use diary and supported the use of these data by many scholars. And then I'll just keep going, and I think each of you will get pictures together, maybe pictures separately, awards separately. Yeah, okay. Dr. Melissa Milkey, and she's my predecessor as a WFRN president and an incredible mentor when I came on, is the co-author of the award-winning book, Changing Rhythms of American Family Life, based on decades of time diary data. Her research is distinctive in combining time diary data measures with subjective perceptions of time, which is so important, as we know, including felt versus actual time with children, time deficits, and meanings attached to time in daily activities and with family members. Her work examining cultural expectations and structural conditions that shape both time allocations and experience has included the US, Canada, and European contexts. And Dr. Liana Sayer focuses research on historical and cross-national determinants, patterns, and consequences of gender and social class inequalities in time use over the life course. This work documents gender inequalities and convergence in households and care work across Western and East Asian industrialized states, resulting mostly from women shifting time to socially valued activities like paid work. It also reveals substantial variation in gender gaps in household work, just what we've been talking about, across institutional and cultural contexts, despite similarities in demographics and normative trends. Congratulations to the three of you. Okay. First, yeah. Over here.
Okay. Thank you all so much. I'm humbled to receive this WFRN Award in honor of Ellen Galinsky and alongside Liana Sayer and Melissa Milkey. I've admired all of their work for many years, and sharing this stage with them tonight is truly a privilege. When I think about the word generative, I think about building the scaffolding that allows other scientists to do their best work. 20 years ago, as a graduate student at the University of Minnesota, I had the fortunate opportunity to get involved in building time use data infrastructure from day one. Our goal with IPUMS has always been simple: take complex, traditionally intimidating time diary data, address the technical barriers to using it, and unlock creative science. And so I think we can all agree that data are a powerful tool for understanding the world. And with my wonderful collaborators, we've used these data to study issues related to work, family, and gender across the life course. And I'm also so grateful for the many conversations I've had with people in this room and in the research community more broadly about using these data to answer their research questions. So in closing, I share this honor with my collaborators and with the incredible team at IPUMS at the University of Minnesota, and thank you to the WFRN committee, and thank you to all of you for believing that minutes matter.
Thanks so much for this incredible honor, both in the name of the award of Ellen Galinsky, who is a real visionary in the field of work family and work life. And that's a true honor. And second, I'm just going to say ditto to what Sarah said, but from a different angle, I'm just one of many very generative time use researchers around the world, and some of whom are here. And so I really value the WFRN recognizing the importance of time use researchers. And again, I just feel like one representative, but acknowledging the importance and the fun of using this data. It's really, it is really generative. And I was just one person who was lucky enough to be placed in my first academic position at the University of Maryland, right down the hall from Suzanne Bianchi, a true visionary who in the field, who is a demographer, but also an incredible mentor and kind, wonderful person who left us way too early. And down the other direction was the father of time use, just happened to be there, John Robinson, who worked many years collecting data from the 1960s at University of Michigan. And so that was beautiful luck, and also I was able to use my use time use research in collaboration with many wonderful graduate students and
teams across not just Maryland, but across many universities, and to take questions of gender and social change in family and work and really get to some meaningful understanding of those. So thank you again so much for this award.
Okay. So I'm also deeply honored to receive this award. I'll say ditto twice. And as I reflect on this and my career, I was really fortunate to train at the University of Maryland with Suzanne and John and Melissa. And now I'm back there. And I think it's really important for us to be thinking about the importance of federal data that provide the funding and the kind of infrastructure backbone for time use research, and I hope we're lucky enough to keep that. And I think the only other thing I want to add is one aspect of what I'm lucky to do every day is work with fabulous grad students. Some of my former ones and current ones are here, and I think that's a really generative aspect of this. So I'm delighted to have them here with me. Thank you. I hate doing stuff like that. Oh, I say it to the mic.
Thank you, Ellen, and congratulations. So this year, we're happy to have two WFRN Lifetime Achievement Award winners. We're gonna start by welcoming Jennifer Frayone, who will present our first award.
Thank you, Jennifer, and good afternoon, everyone. The Lifetime Achievement Award recognizes extraordinary scholars who have made enduring contributions to the work-family community. The award is selected by the Executive Board of the WFRN. Brad Harrington, if you could please join me up here. WFRN is delighted to recognize Dr. Brad Harrington as the co-recipient of the 2026 Lifetime Achievement Award. It was my pleasure to nominate Dr. Harrington for his long-term visionary leadership of the Boston College Center for Work and Family. For 35 years, the center was the country's leading university-based center focused on helping employers enhance the quality of life for employees and their families. By bridging the worlds of academic research and corporate practice, the center identified the highest quality research available, enabling employers to create workplaces that supported the employee experience. This was done through a wide range of vehicles, including research reports, executive briefings, semi-annual roundtable meetings, bringing together leading employers and scholars, and many of you in this room had presented at some of those events, and the Rosabeth Cantor Award done in partnership with Professor Shelley McDermott Wadsworth of Purdue University. In addition, Dr. Harrington's pioneering the New Dad research series, which commenced in 2009, resulted in 9 published research reports and numerous articles in academic journals and popular press that focused on the changing role of fathers in contemporary families. That research has been widely cited in the media across the globe, resulting in hundreds of newspaper articles, radio and television interviews, as well as invitations to speak at the White House and participate on state and national task forces on working families. Brad is also the author, in collaboration with BU Professor Tim Hall, of Career Management and Life Work Integration, using self-assessment to navigate contemporary careers. This book and his courses in Boston College's MBA and undergraduate capstone programs served as a model that continues to provide essential opportunities for reflection and goal setting, preparing young people for the complicated path to fulfilling personal and professional lives. Brad also has a unique combination of 20 years of corporate human resource experience at Hewlett-Packard, in addition to his 24 years as a leader of an academic research center. And combined with his unwavering commitment to translating research into solutions and actions to benefit employees and their families, these combined make Brad an excellent candidate for the WFRN Lifetime Achievement Award. Many of us in this field have been fortunate to know Brad as a generous colleague, mentor, and friend, and I'm very excited to congratulate him for this award.
Well, first of all, I thought I was getting the Ellen Galinsky Award, so this is a big surprise. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Anybody who knows me, I'm often kidding. And boy, that was a good hair day for me. I can't thank the WFRN enough, and specifically the leaders of WFRN, for selecting me for this award. It is really a great honor. A little bit of a surprise. I retired 18 months ago from the field, and I was sitting there eating my cornflakes one morning on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, and I got a very nice email from Jennifer and Stephen, and I thought, wow, okay, people remember me. How nice is that? But I know pretty well, and I'm good friends with many of the past recipients of this award, Ellen being one, Kathleen Christensen, Marcy Pitkat-Sufis, Shelley McDermott, Jeff Greenhouse, you know, and most specifically my co-leader, my co-award winner, Ellen. And to be in their company is honestly really a privilege. I wasn't as prolific in terms of publications as any of those folks were, but our mantra as a center was not about how many articles we can publish or how many times we can get academic journal, you know, pieces published, but really it was about how do we take the great work that all you guys are doing as scholars and find a way to get that into the hands of corporations and other employers who we felt were really in a good position to sort of impact the day-to-day lives of working people. And that was what our mantra was from the word go, from the founding by Brad Googans 35 years ago. And I think it was hard work, but it was great work to be a boundary spanner between all of you great academics and the great corporations and employers around the world who are doing good things to try to help people, you know, have success both in their professional and in their personal life. So I can't thank you guys enough, the leaders of this organization and the members for this award. It honestly is, it's a surprise, and also it's something I just very much appreciate. Second thing I want to say is I really appreciate, you know, the work that you do, Steve. And I remember like Marcy was involved in this from day one when it was the Sloan Network, and Judy Casey was involved, who was a former employee and partner of mine, at getting this thing off the ground. And I think in a time like we're in right now, there are so many young people who think, oh, I got a great job. I'm working remote. I don't ever have to go to the office. I don't have to interact with people directly. I'm so much more productive at home. And sometimes in the midst of all that, we forget the power of community. And you mentioned that as an important component of caregiving, but it's also a super important component of being collaborative and finding teamwork and finding people that you love and respect. And I can tell you honestly, in addition to the connections we made, some of the best friendships I made and some of the most fun nights I had were going out with members of this community at the conferences here or in Barcelona, where a number of us would connect and drink sangria and stuff, which I won't go there, but those were good times. And just to say that sense of community, I think, is sometimes lost in this day and age. And I think it is so important. And I love the people in this community, and I really can't emphasize enough how important it is, which so many of you people did, to make the time and travel to be together and to really have a sense of connecting. I think we're losing that these days, and I think it's a shame. Final thing I'd like to say is I was really blessed to have fantastic employees at a small center at Boston College. And those people sort of hit above their weight class or whatever the expression is. But there was only a small group of us. But the people that we had at the center were so dedicated to the work that we did that I think they brought a lot of visibility to not only our center, but much more importantly, a lot of visibility to the work that all you guys did. And I was just so happy to work with these people. There was a small group, but they were very passionate and very committed. And most of all, I would like to recognize get choked up here. My wonderful colleague Jennifer Frayone, who worked with me. She was a student of mine, worked with me at the center for 20 years. And if anybody else deserves this award, it's Jennifer, because she's done so much great work to build community, both within the corporate arena and also the connection to the academic arena as well. So Jennifer, thank you so much for that. Thank you. And finally, she's my work partner. Some would say work wife. I don't think that's going to go over well. So I'll just say my work partner and my life partner, Annie Sleeson, is here as well. And I can't tell you how much support she has given me and how much guidance she has given me over our 40 years together. And you're probably thinking to yourself, she's put up with this guy for 40 years. Yes, she has. And I love her with my whole heart. We've had a very happy marriage and a really wonderful family. So thanks, everybody. This is a great award and a great honor to share with Ellen. And, keep on keeping on. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and congratulations, Brad. And now please welcome Matt Piestruck, who will be presenting our second Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you. Okay, WFRN is delighted to recognize Ellen Ernst Kossek as co-recipient of the 2026 Lifetime Achievement Award. So Ellen, come on up. Nominator Shelley McDermott Wadsworth writes of Dr. Kossek's extraordinary scholarly productivity, which includes, and bear with me, it's a lot, 112 articles, 56 chapters, 6 journal special issues, 10 books, and 12 public scholarship products. Dr. Kossek secured research grants totaling over $34 million from funders including NIH, NSF, Sloan and Russell Sage Foundations. A distinguished management professor, emerita, and current scholar at Purdue University. She received the Lou Anne Day Award, which annually recognizes the best social science research conducted by a Purdue faculty member. Nationally, she has been elected as a fellow of the Academy of Management, the American Psychological Association, and the Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology. She was one of the very few scholars chosen to receive a Work-Life Legacy Award from the Families and Work Institute in 2014. Internationally, she is one of the most recognized researchers among those whose work has been highlighted in the international competition for the Rosa Beth Moss Cantor Award for excellence in research on work and family. She received the award in 2015, was a finalist 4 other times, and nominated 4 other times. In 2018, Dr. Kossek was recognized as a top 10 extraordinary contributor to work-family research. In 2025 and 26, she received a prestigious research fellowship to Stanford University. One marker of a scientist's impact is citations, as we all know. Since 2020, she has been in the top 2% most cited scientists globally. Dr. Kossek, as of the time of the nomination, had 37,808 total citations. And I checked right before this, and she's got 2,000 more since that nomination. She has 4 articles that have been cited more than 1,000 times and 72 articles cited more than 100 times. I didn't check her H index, but it's very high, I'm sure. Another indicator of achievement is professional leadership. Dr. Kossek served as the first elected president of the Work and Family Researchers Network. She has served on the Board of Governors for the National Academy of Management. At the National Academies of Science, she served on 2 panels. Her advice has been sought from U.S. government agencies, international organizations, and centers. She's won multiple mentoring awards. As her nominator writes, she's fearless in her ability to speak truth to power about gender and diversity in ways that her audience can hear and absorb. And perhaps the best phrase that captures Dr. Ellen Ernst Kossek's career is relentlessly generative. And we are very happy to present you with this Lifetime Achievement Award.
Well, I'm the only thing standing between you and wine and food. So I served on Matt's dissertation committee, so that's really cool. And I'm still working with Matt. I love this community. I think we are so unique to be organized around an issue, but being able to talk about discipline across disciplines. And everybody says we should do that, but we are trying to model it here. And the people that run this, from Steve and Jennifer and the Ellen and others that have, and Melissa and Susan, and I just see so many people here. This is cool, and let's keep it going. And thank you for traveling here, everyone who's come. It's just about me in terms of my early work. I was at Yale finishing my PhD in my 4th year of study. I was pregnant in September to have a baby. Not a good time when faculty didn't even have leaves then. So I stayed in and I TA'd for Rosabeth, and I finished ahead of everybody else, not necessarily healthy, but we're still struggling on campuses. I bet there are students and faculty here with stories. So we have to practice it in our own community. And I'm worried that these centers closing, like Brad's Center and Berkeley just closed their center on gender. And Ellen Galinsky, to me, did the model of measuring attitudes from employees and managers. And I hope we can invest in data sets because that does inform policy. I love the idea of translation, and I think that's so important. We publish our articles and we're exhausted, but do take time to talk to your university media. And I'm not done yet. So I'm like, I feel like, Monty Python. I'm not done yet. I'm still going, and I still care about this. I'll be in the UK some next year, Summit, University of Pittsburgh, and then still doing things with Purdue. And one thing about the research, if I was talking with someone here who's interested in interventions and change, and we do need to document what's wrong, and change the narratives. And I hope too, even though it's not sexy, keep doing research to show what works and how we can fine tune unintended consequences of things that we try. And we have so far to go. And thank you so much. And I really love this group.
Thanks, Matt, and congratulations, Ellen.
And I think I get to get the mic for a moment. Do I? Excellent. Excellent. This is not scripted, so Jen doesn't know this, but I'm here to thank President Jennifer Hook on the behalf of the membership and the board. So if you don't know me, I'm Stephen Sweet. I serve as the executive officer of the Work and Family Researchers Network. And I will tell you, it has been an absolute joy to work with Jennifer for the past year and a half in planning this conference. I just want to share with you, she's going to welcome you to the reception in half a moment. I just want to share with you a few observations about some of the things that Jennifer has done to create this conference and to secure the WFRN and our collective interests. Jennifer has tremendous wisdom and foresight. She, as you know, created a captivating conference theme centering care across the life course. And in the context of that, put together a fantastic program committee who have been remarkable in creating the wonderful sessions that you're participating in. My understanding is that they've been really well received and well attended today, which is just great. You will observe that Jennifer has been keenly focused on creating an inclusive conference, especially focusing on scholars who are in their early career stages, and also for representatives who are here from across the globe. I would also like to share with you that very early in the conference planning, Jennifer made a very important decision, and she wisely advised the WFRN board to change our conference venue from Boston in the United States to here in Montreal, Canada, in response to information that we were receiving from our members who were expressing great concern about traveling to the United States. That was an extremely difficult decision. I don't know of another leader that would have been so quick and so smart in figuring out the need to do this and bringing us here so that we could all be together here in the way that we would want to be. And it's just absolutely, I'm so grateful for you for doing that. Jennifer, after this conference, is going to be traveling, so I'm not going to present her a physical gift. This is in the mail to her currently, but I want to share with you a picture of the gift that I picked out for her that is on behalf of our membership and the board. And now this picture, I hope, does justice. It's a wonderful piece of art. And what I hope happens is that Jennifer puts it in her house and occasionally uses it as a prompt to reflect on the remarkable contributions she's made to our community, and that it brings her peace and it brings her joy. So we're going to give Jennifer just a hearty round of applause. Now, one last little piece of housekeeping. In a moment, Jennifer is going to officially welcome you to the reception. We have got recipients of our Global South Travel Awards. I expect that many of you are here in the audience. After the conclusion of this session, I would please invite you to come up so that we can have a nice photograph taken of you together, okay? And thank you all.
Thank you. Well, thanks, everybody. That was really lovely. And I am going to welcome you to our gala reception. But before I do want to draw your attention to posters that you will see outside of the reception honoring Ted Childs. Ted was a work and family business champion and a founder of the field. WFRN is honored to celebrate his life, and we hope you'll take time and check out the poster on your way in or during the reception. And with that, I now welcome you to join us right out on the mezzanine for wine, hors d'oeuvres, and good conversation.